My name is Marla McGuinness, and I will be your moderator for today's media availability. Joining us today are the Honourable John Lohr, Minister responsible for the Provincial Emergency Management Office, Halifax Regional Municipality Mayor Mike Savage, Erica Fleck with HRM's Emergency Management Office, and Dave Pickles, Chief Operating Officer with Nova Scotia Power. We're also joined virtually by Cape Breton Regional Municipality Mayor Amanda Mcdougall, Bob Robichaud, Warning Preparedness Meteorologist with Environment and Climate Change Canada, and Jason Mew with Nova Scotia's Emergency Management Office. Minister Lohr, Mayor Savage, and Mayor Mcdougall and Mr. Pickles will each offer some brief remarks before we take questions from the media. We'll start with Minister Lohr. Go ahead, Minister.
Thank you, Marla. Good afternoon. I'm pleased to be joined here with a few of our key partners to provide a brief update on preparations underway across Nova Scotia in advance of Hurricane Fiona. I'd like to thank Mayor Savage and Mcdougall, as well as Nova Scotia Power's Chief Operating Officer Dave Pickles, for taking the time to join me today. I'd also like to thank Bob Robichaud with the Canadian Hurricane Centre, EMO Director of Incident Management Jason Mew, Erica Fleck with HRM, and Christina Lamy with CBRM for being here to help answer some technical questions. Fiona is projected to be a significant and historical weather event for Nova Scotia. In the past few years, Nova Scotians have done the work and prepared for several hurricanes and storms like Hurricane Teddy in 2020. Luckily, the impacts of those storms were minor. Fiona is different. All questions have been removed as to whether this storm will happen. We are now certain. Fiona will impact our province, and it has the potential to be very dangerous. Impacts are projected to be felt across the province. Every Nova Scotian should be preparing today and bracing for impact. The storm is expected to bring severe and damaging wind gusts, very high waves and coastal storm surges, intense and dangerous rainfall rates, and prolonged power outages. The time to get ready is now before Fiona hits tomorrow evening. Over the past several days, emergency management and response partners, all levels of government, and other key stakeholders from one end of the province to the other have been coming together to prepare. I can't tell you enough of how proud I am of the collaboration and partnership I have seen so far, and I want to thank all our partners who have come to the table willing to do this necessary and important work on behalf of the safety of all Nova Scotians. This will be an around-the-clock, all-hands-on-deck response. Many people who are lined up to prepare and respond to this storm have been and will be working long hours, many away from their families and loved ones. That is difficult, and I can't express enough the gratitude I have as Minister and as a fellow Nova Scotian. As we all prepare, you as Nova Scotians have a role to play. We need your help. To that note, I urge you to continue to monitor local weather forecasts for updates and to take necessary precautions to be ready before the storm hits. That includes securing outdoor items and trimming or removing damaged trees or limbs, having a 72-hour emergency kit ready, charging cell phones and devices, and ensuring you have a safe and secure place to stay. Stay home from the storm and keep away from areas in your home that could be hit with flying debris like doors and windows. Also, please remember to check in on your neighbors, especially the elderly and persons with disabilities or those who may live alone. We are committed to providing you with as much information as possible as we prepare and are ready to respond to whatever Fiona leaves behind in the days ahead. Please stay safe. I will now give the floor to Mayor Savage.
Thank you very much, Minister Lohr. Good afternoon, everybody, to those who are here with us today and to those who are following online. While HRM's Emergency Management Office, our EMO, continues to work with its provincial counterparts and Environment Canada to monitor the progression of Hurricane Fiona, we are urging residents to take appropriate precautions for personal safety and property protection. Please take the time to prepare a household emergency kit, secure your property, and reach out to friends and neighbors who might need help securing theirs. Please put away things like lawn furniture and any other items that could become projectiles in the high wind conditions expected Friday and into Saturday. You can also help by clearing catch basins near your property to prevent blockages by leaves, to mitigate flooding risks, as long as it's safe for you to do so. This hurricane system poses a serious safety threat, and we do not want anybody deliberately putting themselves in harm's way. Wave watchers and surfers need to stay away from coastal areas. If you live near the coast, you must be prepared to leave on short notice and pay close attention to possible evacuation orders. Throughout our entire Halifax region, you should be prepared for downed trees, extended power outages, and local flood conditions. Households should have a 3-day emergency supply of water and food, clothing, first aid supplies, batteries, flashlights, blankets. These should be in a bag or a container that's easy to transport in the event of an evacuation. And you can find tips to follow prior to, during, and after the hurricane at www.halifax.ca/hurricanes. I can assure you that while we recognize the threat that Hurricane Fiona poses to our community, the Municipal Emergency Response Team, headed up by Erica Fleck beside me, is at the ready. We have plans in place to provide emergency shelter to unhoused people, working with the province and community service providers. The Dartmouth East Community Centre and Beacon House in Sackville will provide safe shelter and food. People who need this support will be transported to those sites. We're working with the province and service providers to share more information. As well, Halifax Ground Search and Rescue Team will be doing wellness checks during the hurricane for anybody who chooses not to leave a designated outdoor sheltering location or an encampment. The local emergency response group, which includes key personnel from fire and emergency, regional police, RCMP, Halifax Transit, Municipal Public Works, Halifax Water, along with representatives from EMO Nova Scotia, Public Safety Canada, the Nova Scotia Department of Community Services, Nova Scotia Power, EHS, and Red Cross are in close communication and are ready to respond. Across municipal, provincial, and federal emergency response lines, we have a strong collaborative working relationship with a great depth of experience. As I was walking here today from City Hall, crews were busy taking down our Grand Oasis stage in front of City Hall. And our staff have been working with local businesses and event organizers to request that they determine if they will be able to maintain their plans to safely hold events over the weekend. Comfort centers are being identified and will be prepared to open if needed once the storm has passed. Across the municipality, our staff are on standby. This includes having generators for critical infrastructure checked, construction sites secured, readying to have water reservoirs topped up, vehicles fueled, and tree crews available. We urge you to think about fire safety during power outages and to use battery-operated lights or oil lamps instead of anything with an open flame. Residents are also cautioned to follow the manufacturer's safe operation instructions when using generators. Please stay up to date as the storm advances, to be as prepared as possible for whatever it brings, and to do what you safely can to help others that might need your support. I encourage HRM residents to visit the halifax.ca website to sign up for Halifax Alert, HFX Alert, the municipality's mass notification system. Subscribers will receive urgent and non-urgent public alerts by phone, email, or text. Please continue to visit halifax.ca or follow HFX.gov on Twitter for all HRM storm-related updates, as well as the province's emergency resources. I want to say that in the time that I've been mayor, I have seen the dedication and the professionalism of all the folks involved in EMO. Here we have such a strong EMO system. The coordination among governments, agencies, and utilities is strong. And it should and it can provide citizens with some comfort in the case of a serious threat. But this is a serious threat, and everybody has to take it seriously. And while my concern has largely been speaking about the Halifax region, I have a concern for all the residents of Nova Scotia. Amanda, Her Worship, I should say, and I spoke yesterday about their preparations and ours from CBRM, and we wish everybody the very best. We're going to do this the Nova Scotian way. We're going to do the right things We're going to hunker down, we're going to be safe, and we're going to take care of everybody. I'm pleased that Erica Fleck is here with me and can answer questions if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to questions, we're going to move now to Mayor Amanda Mcdougall up in Cape Breton, who's going to join us for some remarks as well. Go ahead, Mayor Mcdougall.
Thank you kindly. So just to reiterate some of the sentiments and comments of my colleagues, first of all, thank you to Minister Lohr for the ongoing and open communication through your office. It has been imperative to our preparation. In that spirit, this is what we're doing right now, folks. We are in the phase of preparation. We want to make sure that all of our residents have as much information as possible. So you will see from the Cape Breton Regional Municipality social media, on the radio, we are sharing every single piece of resource and contact information that is going to help you throughout this event. Like Mayor Mike Savage said before me, we are not waiting for this. We know that this is coming. Right now, Cape Breton as an island is in the direct impact zone. We have been through these types of events before, but my fear is not to this extent. The impacts are going to be large and they're going to be real and immediate. Right now, we are helping folks understand what they need to do to keep their own property safe. Our departments are working round the clock to make sure infrastructure is prepared as much as possible, working municipal and provincial and federal departments together to ensure that our residents are safe. We're also working with our community stakeholders, making sure that those that are unhoused have options for safe shelter. Right now, our community homeless shelter does have space. They also have an extreme weather center that will be opened and engaged as well. I cannot say enough about the Red Cross and Salvation Army and their quick and immediate response to working with the Ally Center to make sure we have additional space for folks who need shelter immediately. As we're talking right now, I must say we do have our CBRM emergency management team meeting right now. They are discussing the potential and logistics around a pre-storm shelter that we're going to open up for the CBRM. This has been in conversations because we know the impact and the direct line of impact that is headed our way. We need to make sure that there's going to be a center for people to go to prior to the storm, because we know that there are different types of housing that are not going to be able to withstand the winds, the flooding, the way that other buildings may. We don't have the details on that yet. We'll be sharing that as soon as possible. Like I said, that team is meeting right now as we're engaged in this video. Again, our comfort center plan is all ready to go and initiate. The reason that we don't put out those comfort center locations, times, and what have you before the storm is that we don't want people out traveling throughout the weather event. And I think this is extremely, extremely important. Mayor Mike Savage was just talking about wave watchers. That is not what we need to happen right now. During the storm, you need to find a place that is safe and you need to stay there. Getting outside to look and engage in the storm is going to be incredibly, incredibly dangerous. So that is why our team right now is focusing on making sure that for those who need to get out of the coastline into a safe place, that there is going to be safe shelter. Again, we are engaged with EMO, cannot speak highly enough for the communication that has been taking place over the last few days, the health authority, the airport, again, Red Cross, Salvation Army, and all of our communities organizations that have been working around the clock to prepare for this. CBU as well, Cape Breton University and Nova Scotia Community College have been really, really important in this communication as well. We have a tremendous amount of students that have just arrived here on Cape Breton Island for the very first time and have not experienced a hurricane weather event before. So it is really important that we make sure that everybody understands what is needed in that 72-hour preparation kit, why it is important not to go outside, and how to keep yourself safe. Again, just reiterating over and over again what not to do. Do not bring your barbecues inside. Do not bring generators inside. We are making sure that we get that information out as constant as possible. I won't keep going because I feel like I'm going to continue saying these things that my wonderful colleagues said ahead of me, but I do want to say this. My phone has not stopped It has not stopped ringing because of our colleagues across the province. Political colors do not matter in these types of events. Every single community leader is stepping up right now. They are there for each other. But first and foremost, we are all working together to make sure the residents that we serve are taken care of and have the information that they need. It is really inspiring to be a part of the group of community leaders that are coming together to prepare. It is even more inspiring to see what I'm seeing on the community level. I'm seeing neighbors out in yards helping one another. I'm seeing folks going up and down the street, making sure that they are pitching in to help in this preparation. That is what Nova Scotia is. That is who Nova Scotians are. And again, from the bottom of my heart, my pride and my love is with all of you. I do want to also stress that we have to be really conscious of transportation right now. On Cape Breton Island, we have one way in and one way out. That causeway is incredibly, incredibly important. I've been talking with the mayors, wardens, and chiefs around the island. We're all keeping each other abreast to what is happening and what will happen in case of the worst case scenario. Let me tell you, again, strong community leadership is taking place right now, only being supported by communities. So we will continue to share information as it comes in. When it comes to those comfort centers, when it comes to that shelter before the storm. But again, just so much gratitude to all the leaders. And again, Minister Lohr, to your office for really making sure that communication flows freely.
Very much, Mayor Mcdougall. And finally, we'll turn it over to Dave Pickles from Nova Scotia Power.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here with our partners this afternoon, and just to be able to provide an update on the work that the teams at Nova Scotia Power are actively working on in preparation for Fiona. Much like everyone in Nova Scotia, we are very closely monitoring the weather and updating our models almost hourly. We use these models to determine, an expected level of impact or damage and where we really need to put our resources to ensure a very quick response to this weather event. We are opening our Emergency Operations Center on Friday morning at 8 a.m. We will staff that with key personnel from around the business that really, have been through multiple weather events. As you recall, in Q1 of this year, numerous weekend weather events back to back. And so we have a very experienced and trained team that's worked through weather events probably too many times, unfortunately, but they are ready. And we are working very closely with the EMO and our other partners, and again, we want to make sure that everyone understands that we are ready for this storm. That being said, there will be outages. That's almost guaranteed. We know it's a very significant wind event. Trees are in full bloom still. Trees and limbs will come down, and that'll cause power outages. We will have our teams responding as quickly as possible, as quickly as it's safe to do so. We will be tracking the wind and mobilizing our crews as soon as they can. Generally, we would like that to be under 80 kilometers an hour before we move line trucks. And, we want to remind customers to report outages using the online website, just so we have the right information coming in at all times. But most importantly, we need to plan, we need to be ready, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll take questions now from media. Before we do, I just want to remind reporters, please identify who your question is for before you ask it. We've got a couple reporters in the room and a few more online, so we'll start in the room first. Go ahead.
Mr. Pickles, let's start where we left off. You said that there will be outages. What is your modeling show as kind of what Nova Scotians should expect in terms of outages?
Yeah, so it is still early. We're 48 hours out, and the variability of the track continues to shift, and depending on whether if it shifts east or west really has a major impact on whether it's a massive hit to Cape Breton or more of a mainland hit. We have seen a shift to the west, so metro impact is starting to creep up a bit as well. So it is too early to be putting any kind of numbers, but we are planning for a very significant wind event. We are not taking any shortcuts with respect to resources. We want to be ready for the extreme wind that we're seeing in the forecast right now.
And in previous hurricanes, one of the knocks against Nova Scotia Power has been the length of time people have been out. How have you improved things to make sure that people who are out get hooked up faster than Juan, than Dorian, than a host of other storms?
Yeah, so there's probably no one answer to that question, but certainly, having the right level of resources and properly staged around the or located around the province for kind of where we expect to see the most damage. We've been reaching out to contractors in New Brunswick, Maine, possibly even into Quebec and Ontario at this point. We are in conversations with both MB Power and Nalcor, who are also kind of in storm prep mode, but as we get a better sense of the track and who is or isn't impacted, we will be drawing on those resources as well. So it's at this point, between PLTs, forestry technicians, damage assessors, we have about 800 plus being mobilized right at this moment, and we continue to reevaluate that about every 4 to 6 hours.
Mayor Mcdougall, you talked about getting there are shelters in there's some buildings that will not withstand this storm. What are you talking about?
Right. And so remembering back to 2019, we often think about the flooding that took place there, but there was also a very significant wind factor to that weather event. And what we saw during that weather event were buildings and homes perhaps that are older in age. We saw, for example, company homes, walls being taken off by wind, roofs being taken off by wind. We're thinking about structures like RVs and mobile homes that are not fixed to the ground. With the amount of wind that is anticipated, there is great danger with buildings like that being damaged by the wind. And so making sure that people have an option to go to avoid the weather event and find a safe place. We're not saying that their homes are going to blow away, but we're saying we need to take every precaution because we've seen what happened last time.
And do you have an idea of how many people you might be able to shelter during the storm?
So I don't have those numbers offhand. Like I said, our emergency services team is meeting right now as we're having this conversation as well. So the second that we do have that information, we are looking at our municipal assets, of course, and our buildings, things like Center 200. So finding places that can accommodate as many people as possible throughout the municipality. We do have our historic downtowns as well with large municipal assets as well. So again, all of this is in the planning phase. As soon as that information is available, we'll be sharing that publicly.
Regarding the vulnerable population, I guess in HRM, I don't know if Erica or the mayor, you want to address this, but at last count, we know there's several hundred people who are living rough. How are they being accommodated or taken care of, I should say, ahead of Fiona?
So we did this last year during winter storms. We moved people from Mar Park, for example, over to the Grey Arena, and brought them back afterwards and did as much as we could to protect their property. And that's what we'll do this time. So we will move people. We will transport people who want to be. Not everybody wants to be, and we will try to encourage people to take shelter to these two locations. These are people who are homeless, and we will transport them there. We'll provide food, obviously shelter. I want to thank some of the service providers who are helping us with this, as well as Beacon House in Sackville and Man Up 902, who will be manning the station in Dartmouth East. And so we'll move people there, we'll take care of them while they're there, and we'll make sure that they get back. And so,
Started already, the movement of people, or will that happen maybe?
that'll start tomorrow, I expect. Erica?
Yeah, as of 4 o'clock tomorrow, we'll be moving people over to the two locations. Yes.
Sorry for Mr. Pickles. Coming back, you mentioned some of the challenges maybe facing your crew with this storm, and part of that was you talked about the arbor, or just the trees, the status over there. Well, maybe you just hit me at that point again. And what are some other challenges maybe that this storm is bringing?
Yeah, so this time of year is certainly not a great time of year to have a storm like this. The trees are in full bloom, and we kind of talk to them as being sails, so they do catch the wind. The ground is a little soft, so there is a bit of risk of, probably more risk in down trees this time of year than, say, in the winter. So that's a challenge, and certainly can cause outages unexpectedly. Just the magnitude or the extent of the damage, and mobilizing large crews, and there will be a want to get out there very quickly. And this event is expected to start late Friday into Saturday morning, but sustained winds will continue throughout the day. That will make it a little bit tough for us to get out, when people want us to get out. The weather on Sunday is, forecasting to be nice, so that will help with restoration efforts. But yeah, there's many challenges.
Mayor Savage, you talked about them taking down the stage at City Hall, but some of the hopscotch events have been moved indoors. Should people really be downtown tomorrow night?
I don't know. I don't know that those decisions are final. Jean, I don't know what the final decision is on those. The Mooseheads have canceled their game tomorrow night, which I know is partly to do with travel of the Charlottetown team. As I said in my notes, we're encouraging people to err on the side of caution, not only in terms of is the venue safe while you're there, but people getting to and from. And those are conversations that will continue.
Given what we're forecast, should people be downtown on Friday night?
My advice to people would be to be home tomorrow night. That would be my advice.
I have a question for the Hurricane Center.
Can I just add
Yes, sir, go ahead.
comment on that? We've also worked with Develop Nova Scotia to close the boardwalk downtown and the Peggy's Cove area as well, so that work continues. But they will both of those areas will be closed Friday.
As of what time, Erica, do you know?
We're still working on the exact time, yeah.
I had a question for Mr. Robichaud.
Yeah, go for it, and then we'll move to the phones.
Hey, Bob, Jesse with CTV. I wanted to ask you, we heard, things like generational storm off the top, and I'm wondering, first of all, what type of conditions this storm's going to bring, and kind of as a follow-up to that, Bob, what kind of effects can we anticipate?
Right. Well, certainly some of the numbers that we're seeing from our computer models are quite aggressive, specifically when it comes to atmospheric pressure and to wind. So it's always difficult to compare one storm to another. For example, Dorian was a very widespread storm, so we had impacts all throughout the Southern Maritimes, not just the localized, like we had, for example, during Juan, even though some of the peak winds that we saw during Juan were higher than what we saw during Dorian. I think what we're going to see here with the Fiona certainly is there are going to be winds tied to this storm that are certainly higher than what we saw with Dorian. And the storm is going to be comparable in terms of its size. So there could be areas within the storm that relatively aren't quite as bad, but this storm, regardless of exactly where it goes, is going to produce some very, very strong winds and some very low atmospheric pressure, which results in some storm surge issues as well. And lots of rain. We're talking anywhere from 100 to 150 to possibly some areas reaching 200 in the North Shore part of Nova Scotia. So certainly it's going to be a storm that everybody remembers once it's all said and done.
Okay, we are going to move to the phone line for questions. We're going to start with Mike Tutton with the Canadian Press. Mike, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yep, go ahead.
Question again for Bob Robichaud. It's being called landmark storm, most intense ever. NBC is the broadcaster using most intense ever to hit Canada. What would you? How would you? What kind of adjective would you be using for this?
I mean, one of the words that I've been using is historic. Again, once this is all said and done, people are definitely going to remember Fiona for a very long time. In terms of the most intense, it depends on what we define as most intense. If we're talking about the lowest pressure that we've seen here in Atlantic Canada was around 940 millibars. That's a measure of pressure. If you look at, if you have a home barometer, that would be off the lower end of the scale of your home barometer, 940. And some of our models are actually indicating they could be somewhere in the 930s. So in that respect, it would be kind of an all-time low pressure for the area. In terms of wind, that remains to be seen if we're going to see some of the the record wind gusts that we've seen with other storms here in Atlantic Canada. But I think historic is a good characteristic of what this is going to be.
Michael, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, thank you. I just one quick for Bob, and then to someone else. What does an all-time historic low pressure mean on the ground? What does that look like on the ground?
Well, it just means very low pressure in terms of the storm surge. It means that there is water that rises up in towards the center of the storm, causing a rise in water level when the storm makes landfall.
And I have one question. I'm not sure if it's for Mayor Savage or for Minister Lohr, but in the last storm we had, a crane came down. What's in place to prevent that this time?
So cranes are governed by the Department of Labor. The city's involved in terms of things like dangerous and unsightly premises. We've been encouraging construction sites, making sure that people are aware that everything, not just cranes, but building materials need to be secured. And the Department of Labor will be the governing body on that. I don't know if Minister Lohr or Erica want to speak to it further.
No, I'll just speak just to reiterate that would be obviously Department of Labor, but I'm certain that crane owners are well aware of the consequences and risks and how to secure their cranes and have a huge interest in doing so. So we would expect them to be taking all precautions.
Michael, if you want to follow up with me afterwards, I can put you in touch with the Department of Labor on that. Next, we'll go to Alicia Drost with Global. Go ahead, Alicia.
Thank you.
Alicia, we can't hear you in the room.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Try. I think you're better. Try it out.
Yes. So I believe this is for Erica, but if anyone else is well, I'm just wondering what lessons were learned from both Juan and Dorian when it comes to preparedness and.
What lessons were learned from Juan and Dorian?
Okay, great question. So we continue to evolve, and we do, after any event, regardless of the size, we do what's called an after-action review. And we take both the good and the bad, and then we improve from there. So minor things like credit card increases for staff. That normally we have $1,000 amounts, so anybody that has to make emergency purchases, fuel levels, further generators, and it just goes across the board. But with that comes training. So we did training with Mayor and Council to go over legislative responsibilities and our bylaws. Halifax has had a huge turnaround in executive directors and staff, so we just completed training on September the 6th, additional training. So we've been training all year, and that was one of the biggest gaps that we found from both Juan and then Dorian. We got a lot better, and we did a lot of things right, but we always miss things because it's always a guessing game. So we just continue to improve and evolve as we go through.
Alicia, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, and what would be your biggest message just for Nova Scotians on what they need to do to prepare?
The biggest thing is be prepared to stay in your homes and be there safely. But again, as Mayor Mcdougall mentioned, there are a lot of older homes, trailers, elderly citizens that may not be able to evacuate safely on short notice. So that's why we're opening up 4 emergency evacuation centers ahead of time as of Friday evening. So for those, we urge those people to self-evacuate if they need to. But really the thing is, as Nova Scotians, we need to take care of ourselves, check on your neighbors, and look after those who may have difficulty getting out of their homes again. Like we always do, we all need to chip in and help each other, but stay in your homes and be safe if you can.
Okay, next we'll go to Andrew Rankin with the Chronicle Herald. Go ahead, Andrew.
Thanks. There's hundreds of homeless people in Halifax, and the shelters are blocked. I mean, I'm wondering, are these 2 temporary homeless shelters, are they going to be able to accommodate that number of people potentially? How many will these locations? How many people will these locations be able to handle? And then will there be bedding and food available?
Yeah, so there will be bedding, there will be food available. We're working with the province in terms of providing that support, as well as with the service providers at the locations who I mentioned, Beacon House and Manhup 902. I will say the province have put a lot of people into housing in the last year. There are almost 70 people that won't require housing because they're in our modular units. The Overlord, the new Overlook. The new facility we're hoping will be open soon. The provincial government very quietly have housed a number of people. I've spoken to Minister McFarlane today in terms of making sure that we're ready for anybody who needs that help. As I say, last year we did this during a number of winter storms when the winds whipped up. We picked people up, we took them to emergency accommodation, and we will take care of people that need help.
Okay.
And I will say, too, that we're very aware of the need and very concerned, and the emergency shelter in Dartmouth and Sackville are there and available, and we have, through Minister McFarlane's department, outreach and navigator workers who are reaching out to homeless people right now to make them aware of their options and where they can go to find safety during the storm.
Andrew, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, sure. I just want to know how many people will these two locations be able to handle, and how are you going to get to the people on the streets who need or in the woods who are in tents, etc.? How are you going to get to these people and make sure that they have shelter?
Well, the service provider community, as well as the navigators and other people, the provincial government, community service, have been reaching out for a year to people who are not in these designated sites and trying to encourage them to come to the designated sites, which have the facilities that we think give people a better chance. We can't force people to take help if they wish not. We really encourage people, particularly those who are homeless, to come in under shelter during this storm, because the threat to their life is very severe. I've been to these shelters in storms before, and quite often there's been a lot of vacancy that hasn't been used because people do find other places to go. They realize that they have to make special circumstances, and maybe they couch surf for that weekend. But we want to make sure that everybody who needs shelter, food, comfort, and transportation to get there has what they need.
Okay, next we're going to go to Pat Healy with the Laker. Go ahead, Pat.
Hi, this question's for Mayor Savage or Erica. Outside the city, what preparedness is HRM doing for those in the Wellington, Fall River, or Musquodoboit Valley areas in terms of comfort centers or help, if required, in these areas?
So those particular areas, of course, when we lose power, which we know we will, we're pretty confident that we will, they lose their water. So that's one of the biggest things. So we would urge those residents to have a safe, potable water supply for drinking for both any of people in the houses and their pets. So that's number one. Number two is that we do have one of our emergency shelters that will be open as of Friday evening. Will be in the Musquodoboit Harbor Community Center, so that will be open Friday night at 8 o'clock, as well as 3 other centers. So we urge people, again, if they will require help self-evacuating, to get there early if they don't feel that they can be safe in their homes. And again, we have 4 centers that will be open throughout HRM. Particular to that area for comfort centers, we will not announce comfort centers until Saturday when it is safe to do so and we can assess where they are needed the most, so that we don't want people traveling where it is not safe to do so.
Pat, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. Mayor Savage and Mayor Mcdougall maybe as well. We've had these storms and hurricanes before, but I don't recall the tone being as serious as in these past 2 pressers. What is your hope Nova Scotians take away from your tone about the seriousness of this hurricane?
Well, do you want to go first, Your Worship?
Go ahead, Mayor.
Well, I think the tone was set by the minister right off the bat. There is no question now. We've been spending a few days saying, well, we'll see where this cone of, uncertainty is going and where the center of the storm is. This storm is going to hit us, folks. It's going to hit us in the face. And so we have to be ready. And as Erica said, we want people to be secure in their homes. That means having everything outside the home battened down. That means having the food that they need. That means having an evacuation kit in case they have to leave. It means being prepared for power outages. Regardless of the best efforts of Nova Scotia Power or any utility, in a storm like this, there will be outages. And so you have to be prepared to survive those outages. I'll say one other thing, and this comes to a circumstance that Councillor Mancini and I had after Hurricane Dorian. We were in the Dartmouth East Community Centre, which was then an emergency shelter. And there was a woman there who had lost all of her meat. She had no power for 3 days. And she said, you know, for some people, when you lose $45 worth of meat, it's an inconvenience. For me, it's a catastrophe. So take care of people that need help. There's a lot of people out there that are worse off than you might think you will be. So take care of your neighbors, but be ready.
Yeah, I would absolutely echo that. And even in the spirit of preparation, which is what we're really pushing right now, it is very much taking care of one another. So I stopped at the gas station in Glace Bay this morning and heard a resident say, can't get a loaf of bread or any milk on any shelves. What we want to make sure is that people are being mindful of our community as a whole as well. Make sure you have enough for 72 hours, but thinking about your neighbors as well, making sure that you're not going there, getting a month's worth of toilet paper and milk. You need to take care of yourself for 72 hours, and every single person in our community needs to do the same thing. We need to take care of one another. I think as well, just the way that this hurricane is moving at this point, the line of direct impact going over Cape Breton Island is very, very concerning. Talking to Mayor Brenda in Port Hawkesbury, we spoke a lot about the causeway. People need to get on and off the island, and I'll say this full disclosure. I'm actually coming to you right now from New Glasgow. I'm in MP Sean Fraser's office because I'm on the way to the IWK with my child for a healthcare procedure tomorrow morning. I need to get back on the island. That point of entry on the island is so imperative. So we know how important it is that our Department of Public Works, all of our municipal employees, police, everybody is paying attention to transportation right now too, and healthcare as well. So it's really preparation and taking care of one another and just checking in, make sure everybody is okay.
Can I just say one thing too, because I may have misled people. Beacon House are providing the service for one of these shelters. That's not the location. The location is the Elizabeth Seton building. So just in case anybody needs that information.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Chloe Logan with Canada's National Observer. Go ahead, Chloe.
Oh, hi. Actually, sorry, I didn't sign up for a question. I'm all good, but thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Do we have one more question in the room? Go ahead.
I just wondered, to pick up on Mayor Mcdougall's point, Mr. Lohr, what is the government doing to safeguard the causeway or to be able to move in and clear that causeway if it gets damaged in any way?
So we're doing a number of things right now. I've been in contact with my federal counterpart, Public Safety Minister Bill Blair. He's offered all federal support available. We've started up our provincial command center already in preparation for this storm. And we've been in contact and discussions with the military to give them a heads up. We're looking at preparing for, if need be, after the storm, an application for federal disaster financial assistance, if that's necessary, which it could well be. It would likely be. And so we're prepping in every way possible right now for the storm. And I know Department of Public Works is very aware of transportation, the importance of our transportation networks, and we will do whatever we have to do to make things better after the storm in terms of the transportation.
And just a short snapper, because I don't think either of you answered the question about how many people will you be able to house in HRM in those centers? Like, do you have a number, dozens?
Yeah, the location in Sackville will house, I believe, 15 people. The one in Dartmouth East can accommodate 60 people.
Okay, that's all the time we have. Thank you very much to all of our participants for joining today. Thank you to the reporters for your questions and the public for tuning in. Stay safe, everyone.